I guess training camp is technically still going on. It kind of feels like it's over. The Eagles held their final individual practice of training camp, we should say.
Well, yeah, they're final with just their own team, but I think Tuesday and Wednesday qualifies training camp practices up in Florham Park, so it's
They
not over
do.
yet.
It's not over yet. It's funny. It's without the team traveling anymore. It's like the lines get blurred of when training camp ends. But it's been a lot of, what are we up to day 15 already? It's a
You're the one that
lot.
writes it down in your notebook every morning, so
I know. I do write day 15 and whatever it is. We should mention this is the Eagle Eye podcast with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We have a lot to talk about today. We want to talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit. He has miraculously recovered from his stomach infection and was back at practice on Sunday. We don't know if he's going to play on Friday night against the Jets. Still to be determined. We want to go through some of the observations from Sunday's practice. Unfortunately, it got moved inside, so fans weren't allowed to be there, which is a shame. We were really hoping to see a bunch of you guys out there. Then later on, we'll kind of go through some injuries, some players on the bubble who could use a good week, and we'll talk about an old friend who we're not allowed to say his name. I don't know. Yeah, who are we talking about?
Chase Daniel.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts. He looked pretty good on Sunday back at practice. I mean, saw no effects of any ailment or even fatigue. He looked like he was good to go.
Yeah, you're right, and he right in the beginning we saw him kind of doing a drill where he would just take off down the sideline, and I'm like, all right, he's fine. I mean, he just looked like himself. I went inside to write after a little bit, so you were there the whole time. But it sounds like he was spinning it pretty good and had a good session. And I know there's a school of thought that the Eagle, there's conspiracy theory for everything. And I understand that when a guy's out there dancing 45 minutes before kickoff and then gets shut down, it's a bad look. But I think the thing, I mean, obviously the Eagles are not going to lie about whether he was in the hospital. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Why would they? Why would you do that? If they didn't want to play him, they would just say he's not playing. He wanted to play. He's a competitor, and I'm guessing that, and we haven't talked to him since all this happened. I would think we would talk to him on tomorrow. I would think after practice tomorrow, Tuesday, up in New York, North Jersey. But he's such a competitor. I assume he was out there trying to mentally get himself in the mode of playing, even though he wasn't physically feeling great, and that's what he was doing. But he was legitimately ailing, and
You just
he
combined two. He was illing, I think is what you just said.
He had a license to ill. So you can save the conspiracy theories for another day. He really was not feeling great, and the good news is that he's back and apparently fine, and hopefully. And I thought that somebody asked a good question. I think it was Zach Berman. If it was a regular season game, would he have played? And Nick couldn't answer it. He said that's a hypothetical, and we're getting into Chip Kelly territory here with the hypotheticals. But I'm guessing he would have. I'm guessing he would have at least tried to play if it was a regular season game. He's fine. He did have a good practice, and we'll see what happens these next few days.
Yeah, and that's the thing here is we have these two joint practices on Tuesday and Wednesday. They have a walkthrough Thursday, and then they play the preseason finale on Friday night at MetLife Stadium. Right now, I mean, Jalen Hurts preseason is 10 snaps. That's it. 2 series, 10 snaps. And you would think, like, almost logically, well, he was going to play in the second preseason game. He didn't. So that means he's going to play in the third. It doesn't sound like it. We've asked Nick Sirianni a couple times about this, and he keeps saying, well, we want to see how he does in these joint practices. They haven't tried to hide the fact they really value these really over game situations. So it's really looking like his preseason is going to end up being 10 snaps.
Yeah, and not just 10 snaps, but 10 snaps on August 12th, a month before opening day. I think if there were 10 snaps in the final preseason game, I'd feel a little more comfortable with it. But that's a month before opening day in Atlanta. I'm just old fashioned. I understand that the modern NFL, the emphasis on learning and walkthroughs and the mental aspect and film study and keeping guys off their feet and keeping them healthy. And I understand that. And I agree with it in theory. I just think there's still room within that to play football, that you need to play some football to be ready to play football. And I'm not alone. Most teams do that. And most teams play their starting quarterback in the preseason, at least some. So maybe we're reading this wrong. Maybe the plan is for Jalen Hurts to play Friday. But like you said, everything that Nick has said, he hasn't said he won't play, but everything he said kind of hints at him not playing. So we might not know till Friday when we get up to the stadium whether he's going to go or not. But I hope he does. I think he needs it.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because you're right. The league has kind of gone away from, but there are some teams who still play their starters. I mean, Andy Reid's playing Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
And he doesn't need the work.
I mean, Ben Roethlisberger played. I mean, these are good. He's won 2 Super Bowls. If he needs the work, I mean, you look around the league. I mean, I saw Garoppolo played. I mean, starters are playing, and they're not playing a whole game, but they're playing, and there's a reason for that. You need. I mean, as good as joint practices are, and they're useful, and they're fun to watch, and they're high intensity, and it's good work. They're not games. It's not a game. There's no live rush on a quarterback. He's still wearing a red jersey. He's not getting hit. He's not. There's not the threat of getting hit. Not that you want him to get hit. The speed is just different. It's just a different animal. Crowd noise, surprising down in distances, the unexpected, dealing with the unexpected, overcoming adversity. There's just so many things that have value in a preseason game, especially to a young quarterback, that I just think it's really important for him to be out there.
Yeah, you made a good point about the timing of a game situation, especially for a quarterback who does use his legs. It's always tough. You watch these practices with him, and the timing's tough to tell because sometimes you'll get a whistle for a sack, and you're like, he would have gotten away with that in a game. He would have gotten out of the pocket. So that stuff is tough to see for him in practice because of his skill set. It's if he was just a pocket passer, then I think you could argue that maybe the joint practices would be just as good. But I think with his skills and his ability to run, getting that timing down in the preseason is important. And, with his receivers, we haven't seen him and Devontae in a game together. That'd be nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to work with all the receivers, Quez and Rager, and all of them. I mean, they just haven't played much football together. And I mean, with Jalen's game, there's an element of making it up as you go, and it's just part of his game. And in practices, he's running the play, and he's not. I just think his mindset's really different. And but yeah, I mean, the work with the receivers, the running backs, they need it. And, you're just not getting it. I think we talked about it after the game on Thursday night. What Flacco said, he just said practices aren't games. And to me, that's 3 words that really encapsulate this situation. You can approach it, you can come close to it, but you just can't replicate it.
Now, Sirianni says that the 2 days of joint practices will dictate. Well, not dictate, but he said they wanted to see these 2 days before making a decision. Are you buying that, or do you think they've already made a decision?
I think the decision's been made. I could be wrong. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it would make some sense to see if he has 2 great days and they shine, then maybe they shut him down. But look, even if he plays, I'm not saying playing for a half. But get him out there a little bit.
2 series.
Get him out there, leave on a good note, and then pack it in for the preseason.
Yeah. We'll see. It is an interesting situation, and I can see the opposite argument. I mean, you can make a really good argument that he shouldn't play.
Oh, sure.
That's what makes it so tricky. I just think there has to be some room for playing football to be ready to play football.
Yeah. These joint practices against the Jets are different to me than the ones against the Patriots because they play the Jets this year. I know it's late in the season, but do you think they'll hold do you think they'll hold some stuff back?
We talked to Nick about that, and he said, teams are so different week 13 than they are. I think for the Eagles, it'll be their 14th game, and for the Jets, their 13th game, I think because the bye is so late. But, he said, we'll be so different. They'll be so different by December that it's really not an issue.
It's week 13 and you think the Eagles are going to be playing their 14th game?
No, it's week 14. They'll be playing their 14th game, and the Jets will be playing their 13th game. Did I say that? You
said it was week 13. The Eagles will be playing their 14th game. And
they have a doubleheader. They have a day-night doubleheader week 8. Jets Giant. Yeah, but yeah. But you know what I mean? It's late in the season, and next thing is they'll have seen everything we do by then. We'll have seen everything they do. And, so what we do in August, we're not going to be giving anything away, but even so, I'm sure there's things they won't do. I'm sure there's things because you might have a play that you don't know when you're going to spring it. It might be week 13 or 14 or whenever that is. But I do think that most of their stuff they'll be running. I would think
it's like that the Doug Peterson end around to Greg Ward. We watched them practice it every day for like 2 years, and then it's like a meaningless fourth quarter, and they bring it out. We're like, "Are you kidding me? I watched this play for 2 years, and you finally run it now."
They got like 3 yards.
Yeah, that's the way coaches are when they think about these plays. It's you never know when they're going to use them. I'm excited for these couple days, though. Joint practices are really valuable. I don't want to make it sound like we're minimizing them because we also value the preseason. I actually agree in general that they're more valuable than the preseason. I don't think Nick's actually made that point, but his actions have suggested it. I think that's the case. I really do, because the situational football, you can set it up. I mean, you can organize it the way you want. So, I mean, heck, the Eagles went into a preseason game without a kicker the other day. So, I mean,
and they didn't need one.
Maybe that's what they were like. Don't score, guys. We can't kick the extra point.
Yeah, it was. I agree. I think for determining the bottom of the roster, it helps. I mean, I do think there's value in the preseason games, and I do think the starters need some work, like I said. But I wouldn't be surprised if we go down to 2 games next year.
It seems like it's headed that way.
Yeah. I mean, if no one's gonna do 2 sets of joint practices and not play their starters, why have them? I mean, it's such a money grab. TV revenue and selling ads and parking revenue and merchandise and all that stuff. I felt bad for people who were there. You show up thinking you're going to see the Eagles. Man. You end up seeing Raekwon Williams play 79 snaps and, Ross Piersbacher playing 54 snaps. And it's like, your kids there, like, where's Kelsey? Where's Fletcher? Where's BG?
Oh, they're wearing ball caps.
Yeah.
Maybe you can go get an autograph.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. But if you take away, I just want there to be a way for fans to see the team before the season, whether it's open practices or preseason. Like, and not to go too nostalgic on Lehigh, but I just miss there being a way for fans to rally behind them. Yeah, I do it a lot, right? I hate that there's not a way for fans to see the team before the season.
Yeah, I agree. I know when they first moved out of Lehigh in 2013, there was talk about having a few practices at colleges around the area, like have one at Westchester, one at Lehigh, one at Rowan, something like that. Mm-hmm. So fans could come to those places. And I guess there were just too many logistical hurdles as far as, you're talking about moving trucks of gear and, getting the players out there and you're losing hours of time.
Yeah, I get it. but a
Um,
couple a couple times.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that in what was the first year at Lehigh? 96, right? In 95, they actually had a practice at Lehigh. Um, and it was a beautiful day, and like 10,000 people showed up. It was in the stadium. It was in the Goodman Stadium, I think they call it, down there in Bethlehem. And it was a beautiful day. I remember it was the first time we talked to Charlie Garner. It was the first time he did an interview in 2 years. We grabbed him coming out of the locker room on the way to the bus, but that has nothing to do with anything. I just remember that. But it was a beautiful day. 10,000 people showed up. They bust everyone up, busted back to Philly. And
Yeah, I love that you remember some interview with Charlie Gardner from 1995 or something. But
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I asked
26
you what
years
you're
ago.
writing for tomorrow. You're like, I have no idea.
It's true. It's true, isn't it? That's why you're putting the budget in slack like all the time. But yeah, so they came up from Westchester for a day, and I remember going up to Jeff Lurie at Lehigh. It was a beautiful day. It was like 65 degrees, and everyone had like long sleeves on, and it was a great practice, and the fans loved it. They went nuts. And I said, man, this would be a great place for training camp. He's like, oh, yeah. And the next year they were there, and the wheels were already pointing to, spinning toward that. But you can do it. And, I mentioned it to Tom Smolensky every time I see him. And he's like, yeah, we'd like to do it, but just logistically.
Tom probably sees you walking
He
toward
hates
him
me.
and starts to make a right turn right away.
I'm either complaining about the music in the stadium because like dance pop is not NFL music. It just isn't. It's like, you're up like 17-14. The defense is running on the field in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes left. Can you stop them and get a win? And they're playing like, Justin Bieber or like Dua Lipa or something. And it's like, who plays dance pop in an NFL stadium? That's where you want like, Pantera or like Sabbath or AC, something like get the defense fired up, get the fans fired up. And they're playing like, they're playing the Biebs out there. I mean, what's that? So every time Don sees me, he knows I'm gonna dude, who is?
You think he's like, are we going to talk about Lehigh or music? Like, what's happening?
Whatever you got on the budget there, Dave. We're talking about joint practices. I tend to get sidetracked sometimes, but doesn't that bother you? Who plays dance pop in an NFL stadium? You go to a Steelers game,
I have not spent more than 10 seconds.
The Steelers are bringing out the sledgehammer of rock every time the defense comes on the field. I mean, it's like, you're getting Blue Oyster Cult or, Megadeth. Getting Megadeth on 3rd and 6. They're playing Megadeth.
Like that, you just like Blue Oyster Cult and Megadeth. Just
whatever. Just
basically the same thing.
No, but you know what I mean. Anyway. What else you got on your little budget there?
The next item is for you.
Oh, well, I was hoping you would say that because you can score big with the AAA Eagles MVP membership, along with the superb roadside assistance and discounts that we've all come to expect from AAA. Get your exclusive Eagles-related perks today. For details, visit AAA.com/Eagles.
It was a shame the public practice got canceled, and then it ended up not raining. That was even like salt in the wound. They tried to prepare, and it looked like the storm was coming in, and it didn't. It ended up being a beautiful afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it started raining in the evening. We talked among ourselves about why not just move it up to like 3:00. I guess logistically you couldn't do that and get all the workers there and all that, but. It did start raining where I am about like 9. Everybody would have been.
They might have run into it at the end.
Yeah, maybe. They probably would have been gone by then. But I guess they had to do it. The forecast was for pretty heavy rain early evening. So, but it was just unfortunate. And fans have 2 chances to see the team. If you can't get tickets, which most people can't, you have 2 chances to see them, and they lost one of them. It's a shame.
Yeah. It's a shame. Maybe next year they can plan to have it
on a sunny day.
No, I was saying like have a backup plan, if having it like your last practice day, your last individual practice day of camp doesn't really, there's no wiggle room. If it gets canceled, it gets canceled.
Or just open up the bubble to the public.
Yeah, let's talk about the bubble, because it's, if people don't realize, the indoor practice facility at the NovaCare complex is small.
Yeah.
It's 60, it's a 60-yard field. There's almost like, how wide's the sideline? Like 4 feet?
No, I think it's 6 or 8 feet. Yeah.
Okay, it's small. It's not a big area, and under Doug Peterson, they barely practice in there. I mean, they would have an indoor day, and it was almost like a glorified walkthrough. So the big surprise for me on Sunday is Sirianni has practice inside, and it was a real practice. Like, they actually, it was intense. It was high energy. It was competitive. I mean, they were having like full out offense versus defense. Obviously not tackling, but which they haven't tackled at all camp. But high intensity. It was impressive.
Yeah, it was surprising to me because I know the players don't like that surface and they want to get on it and off it, and as fast as possible. And I think Doug's idea kind of, I mean, it was the same with Chip, and since that place has been there, with Andy, you would go in there and it would basically be a walkthrough because it's so hard on your legs. The surface indoors there, the turf is really tough, and so to go for an hour and a half. They have a day off today. That might have been part of the reason. And just, it's their last opportunity to, because they're off today. Then they have the 2 Jets practices, then a day off before the game, a day off after the game. So it's really their last chance to practice as a team for a week, So, I mean, the next practice will be next Sunday, I would guess, and it'll be close to us, but it'll still be a practice. But I would think that has something to do with it. But I'm sure there's some sore legs today because just walking on it, you can feel it. It's not like the vet. I mean, it's not like you would walk on the vet and you'd feel your tendons just screaming at you. But it's not a fun field to practice on, to run on. But they did get some good work in there. And, that's one thing about Nick. I mean, they when they do practice, they really do practice.
It was cool. This is the first time we've seen them do this. He had a bullhorn, and during one of the periods, it was what he called his third down jamboree, which we were saying would be a great band name, Third Down Jamboree. He was calling out scores. And I don't know exactly what the point system was, but if the offense had a big play or they handled their assignments correctly, he'd give 4 points to the offense and they'd keep a running tally. So it was kind of cool to see inside one of those competitions and actually know how he was scoring it, or at least try to get an idea. I was really trying to crack the code. I even went back in my notes to try to figure out what's worth what, and I couldn't. I have to ask him about that because it looked like there had to be predetermined values for certain things, unless we was just making it up on the fly. But it was competitive, and the guys really, you could see they were getting into it because there were a few times I think the offense was unhappy with one of the point totals they were given, and they started yelling at him, and they were, they thought they deserved more. So it was fun to watch.
So sounds like the Harry Potter, like when Dumbledore's giving the points out to the different houses, 30 points, Hufflepuff, and nobody knows how he decides how many points anyone gets.
It was
10
like that.
Points for Gryffindor.
This might be the first movie reference you've ever made on the pod.
No, we talked about that thing you do earlier in the spring.
Is that right?
Yeah. Because somebody tweeted to me and corrected. I had the wrong songwriter for the theme song for the main song from the movie.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'm surprised the offense doesn't win every drill they do, considering who the head coach is. But
the defense won the whole period too.
Yeah. So surprising that they did that work in there. The old bubble. Did you ever go in the old Eagles bubble? It was next to it was in the parking lot behind the vet. It was right off, right by the Schuylkill Expressway. Actually, it was right it was right there it's now a parking lot for the Phillies, but it was so bad. There was an airlock. It had compressed air, filled it up. Mm-hmm. So you had to go through this airlock, and when you would go in the one door and you're in this little foyer, and then you go through the second door into the bubble, and your ears would pop because of the pressure. And they had to practice football on it. And it was round. It was this round bubble. And if there was too much snow, that bubble was not a bubble anymore. So yeah, that was not an ideal place to.
It's like those giant parachutes in you ever see elementary school where they all throw it up and then sit on it and it makes a bubble?
No, I missed that.
Maybe anyone who was like who's my age probably had that in gym class in elementary school. It was like a giant parachute, and you'd like everyone at once would like you're putting sheets on a bed, and it would like get full of air, and then you'd sit on it around the edges, and you just sit under the bubble. I don't know what that had to do with physical education, but it was.
Did that? It sounds like a good aerobic workout right there.
I guess, yeah. What else from Sunday's practice stood
That'd
out?
be a good segue into bubble players, but that's not.
It would be, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not.
I thought Alex Singleton had a real nice play at a sack, and then Jalen Hurts got a deep pass to Zach Ertz down the left sideline, kind of past Singleton. I think they were in zone, but that was probably the biggest offensive play. Josiah Scott had a big interception, a kind of a leaping interception off Joe Flacco in 7-on-7s. He's a player who we're going to talk about bubble players in a little bit. He's a guy who probably fits that. Devontae Smith. Oh, we should mention this. There was a little bit of a scare. It was a tense few moments on Twitter. He during 7-on-7s, it looked like he probably rolled his ankle. He limped off the field, got checked out by a trainer, but he ended up going back into practice. He looked okay. We'll see. You never know with an ankle. Sometimes it can flare up the next day or something. So we'll keep an eye on him when they get up to North Jersey, but he looked to be okay. It was kind of an exhale moment with him.
Yeah, got to keep him healthy. Got to keep him good for September 12th. A couple guys came back.
Yeah, Andre Dillard back at least in a limited fashion. He didn't do team drills, but he was working with the second team offensive line, an individual. We'll see what they do with him. I mean, Nick Sirianni, the last time we asked him, said, no, it's still, we haven't decided yet. But, I mean, they can't afford to give him first-team reps. So
Yeah,
I'd assume that he'll be working with the twos. And I would think that I'd try to cross-train him. I know they don't have much time left, but try to get more value out of him and help him learn another position. But because –
quarterback?
Yeah. Who else was back? Javon Hargrave was back. He had an ankle injury. He was back in team drills. That was a good sign. He's been having a monster camp, so that's a good thing that he was back. Craig James back, who doesn't get talked about, but he's a roster player, I think.
Jason Huntley back.
Jason Huntley back, just very limited. But that was good. Jacoby Stevens returned. He's missed some time, and he was a guy I thought maybe they're going to try to sneak him on IR, and now he's back and healthy, so I don't know what's going to happen there. The new injury was Fletcher Cox. Has a groin, limited. Doesn't seem like it's too big a deal, but look, he doesn't need this time. The interesting thing with Fletcher's injury was that Milton Williams was working with the first team at defensive tackle instead of one of the veterans, whether it's Hassan Ridgeway or T.Y. McGill. I was surprised by that because we haven't seen Millen inside much at all.
The early on, like the first few days, I feel like he split inside and outside, but it makes sense. I mean, they don't have depth there, and T.Y. McGill has had a nice camp, but when you look at defensive tackle, I was looking at the numbers. Like Hargrave's never played more than like 58% of the snaps, and I think you don't want to get much over 60% with him. Fletcher at this point in his career is probably like a 70% player, Yeah. So that leaves in a 17-game season, that leaves like 800 snaps that you need. And I mean, Hargrave, Ridgeway and McGill, I don't even know if Ridgeway's going to be on the team. We don't know if either of them will be on the team, but they're not going to make up those snaps. So it's either got to be Milton or you got to go get a defensive tackle who can eat some snaps. He can give you 20, solid snaps.
That's the thing. So deep at end. I mean, they're really 4 deep at end.
Yeah.
They have the 2 starters, whether it's Sweat or Barnett, and then you have the other one, Brandon Graham and Ryan Kerrigan. So, I mean, they're a lot deeper at end than they are at tackle.
It makes sense from a depth chart standpoint to have Milton inside, but they just like him outside.
Yeah.
So, but they need him more inside. And I don't think he's bad inside. I think maybe, and he said that he played, I think he's told us he played outside up until his senior year in college. So he feels more comfortable there, but it makes sense that he was the guy to go in there. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, Hassan Ridgeway and T.Y. McGill, they might get you through a game if you need it, but they can't be a long-term solution as a third tackle. I just don't think they can be. I mean, I don't think Ridgeway's really, I don't think he's looked good at all. I think he's had a really pedestrian camp.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how those reps split up in North Jersey at D tackle.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that could be it was funny watching him. It's like, I haven't seen Milton inside much at all. And he's out there against Brandon Brooks. That's a good test for him.
Well, you had a note in your obs about how he saw just imperceptible, just a little bit of movement across the line, and he went.
Yeah, it was impressive. That's the way the defensive linemen are taught. If you see movement from the offensive line, go draw the false start. But it was like slight movement. I didn't even see it. And it takes a little bit of courage for, a rookie who's getting his first team reps at that position to jump across the line and draw a false start that I couldn't see from the sideline. And the referee backed him up, called the false start. I thought it was, we've learned that Milton's a pretty smart kid, but I was impressed by that. It was something little, but I was impressed by it.
And I don't even know if that's being smart or just having football instincts. It's probably a little of both.
Yeah, you're right.
But like you said, more than anything, it's just being confident in what you see and what you're, what you've been taught. And that's a really good sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
couldn't
that.
Tell. Either way, it was either Brooks or Kelsey that moved. And either way, you're telling, a 3 or 4 time Pro Bowler, that was on you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's impressive stuff.
Yeah. I don't have much else from the practice. And we did the injuries. Anything else that stood out from practice?
Not really. I actually like being in there. You're so close to the action. I mean, we're closer to the field.
Too close at times.
Yeah. I mean, those corners were like running right into us. They had to move us out of their way. But yeah, just kind of watching some of the different drills that they were doing, tackling drills, ball security drills. You get really close.
They're working on strip drills for the DBs. Something they've emphasized this summer, and that's always a fine line. It's always the. I know who did you say fine line. It is though. It's I think sometimes when you see a team overemphasize strips, it can become a problem.
You have to make the tackle first.
Yeah.
You have to make
second
the tackle.
guy in is a strip guy.
Second guy in is a strip guy. First guy in, if you have him, go for the ball. If he's not going to, if you have a good, grasp of him, but we'll see. I mean, they obviously have to get more turnovers than they have. I mean, they're one of the worst in the league. It's their worst 3-year period of turnover takeaways ever, but it's true for a lot of teams. I mean, takeaways just in general are down in the league, mainly because interceptions are down so much. But yeah, it's the emphasis on it is a little, I mean, I just, you just want to make sure these guys are focused on making the tackle first. And I mean, for the most part, I think they've tackled pretty well. Obviously the 2s and the 3s didn't on Thursday, but I think they did in the first game. And I mean, the first group didn't really play much, but the linebackers who did play tackled pretty well. So I don't know. It's just got to the main, and I think JG gets that across to them that you got to make the tackle first. You got to be fundamentally sound and then try to get the ball out.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll see if it pays dividends. It's been a year of uncertainty, but one thing is certain, and that's this: Independence Blue Cross can help you make the healthcare decisions that are right for you. Choose coverage you can count on with the region's strongest network. Independence Blue Cross. Learn more at ibx.com.
All right, Rube, I just had a fun little game we can play. I think there are, for the most part, how many roster spots do you think are already locked up? A significant portion.
40, mid-40s.
Yeah, probably like 45, I was going to say. They have to get down to 53 by August 31st. But I think there are several players who are firmly on the bubble. So let's just go back and forth and talk about some of those guys who might need to have a good final push here the last week before final cuts to make this roster.
Yeah, you want to start?
Sure. I'll start with, how about Patrick Johnson?
Uh-huh.
Rookie linebacker who's learning kind of this new hybrid position. Jannard Avery has now injured his other groin. That guy can't stay healthy, but that means that Johnson's probably going to get a lot of those first team Sam reps, both in these practices and probably in the game. So if he looks fine, I haven't seen anything that really says Jannard Avery needs to have a roster spot other than the fact that he's been a first teamer at a lot of these practices. I think Johnson has a shot to make this team over him.
I think Patrick Johnson's done more. I wouldn't say he's had his dominating, overwhelming camp, but I think he's been more active than Avery when he's been out there.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up here and there. He makes some plays. And, for a late round type of guy, I mean, wasn't he a 7?
Yeah.
I believe he was a 7. So I'll tell you what, I know they gave up a 4 for Avery, but I would keep Johnson over Avery.
Yeah, it's a fair point at this stage. All right, who you got?
John Hightower.
He's on my list too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's up and down. Not the ups are few and far between. He had a big catch yesterday, but it's tough because he had that stretch last year. He had back-to-back 50-yard catches, back-to-back games, and you were like, maybe it clicked for him, and then. But he just hasn't been able to get better. He doesn't track the ball particularly well. Doesn't catch the ball particularly well. He's fast as hell. But while you see Quez getting more and more comfortable with his speed and kind of transferring his speed into plays, you just haven't seen that with Hightower. I think he might be on the outside looking in right now.
Yeah, receiver's a position right now where I think there are 5 guys who I feel pretty comfortable about. Fulgham I don't think he's a lock, but the 5 guys would be Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Jalen Reagor, Greg Ward, and Travis Fulgham. I don't know if there's a 6th guy who deserves a spot.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I was keeping 6, I would take Andre Patton over John Hightower.
And he's someone who we haven't talked enough about on merit. Yeah. And he plays special teams a little bit.
He can play special teams a little bit, and he's played in the league. I think he's had a good camp. He got here late, but he's, he hasn't done anything spectacular. Well, he had that one really great touchdown maybe a week ago in team, but no, that was against the Patriots.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hightower was a 6, I believe.
He was a 5.
He was a 5. So yeah, Quez was the 6. Hightower was before Quez. So yeah, I mean, you'd like to see a 5th round pick from last year make the team, but it's not like they're going to keep him because he was draft pick if Patton was significantly better.
Yeah, and Jay Jaw's still in the mix. I don't think he's off the team. Like I think he's in the mix to make the roster.
Yeah.
All right, my next one is Reuben Clark, the veteran. He's just got to show he's healthy and he can help. He's gotten such a late start here, but now that he's off the PUP, he can't go back on the PUP. So it's either he has to make the roster or they have to cut him. Or, I mean, you could always IR a guy if he gets hurt again, but that's not what we're really talking about here. It's a tough thing because if they keep Reuben Clark, that probably means Brett Toth is off the team. And we'll see what happens with Dillard.
Right.
But the backup tackle position is a little undefined right now, aside from Jack Driscoll.
Right. And, ideally you'd like, and that's why it's kind of a little surprising they haven't, Dillard's been hurt, so you haven't been able to work him at right tackle, but I'm a little surprised they didn't try to at least get him some work there earlier in camp.
Well, they were sticking to that competition.
Yeah, and I get that. But at some point when it was clear, and again, if Dillard takes first team reps in New York, there's got to be investigation.
I agree with that. That can't happen.
We won't know, I guess, till, I'm sure tomorrow will be Mulata's day. Well, we don't know if he'll be doing, I would think he'd be doing team drills, but we don't know. But if he's out there on Wednesday taking reps with the ones, I'm writing a column. I'm coming down hard on it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Yeah. At this point, you got to get ready for the season.
Yeah. You got another one?
Well, Hassan Ridgeway is a guy who started 14 games the last 2 years, and I thought played okay. He got hurt both years, week 7, season ending. He wasn't bad, and I kind of had him earmarked for the third D tackle spot, but like we said, he hasn't had a good camp. I'd even say he's had a bad camp. Just hasn't done much of anything. And, whether it's Milton, maybe T.Y. McGill's in the mix, maybe they sign like the Bruce Hector of the month. But I'm not sure there's a spot on my 53 for Ridgeway.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, but the depth there's a little scary, and you start to wonder if that's a position they could target when other teams make their cuts. So even if one of these guys is safe, it doesn't necessarily mean he'll be here for the long haul. Let me give you one more. Jacoby Stevens, the other late round linebacker, very different than Patrick Johnson, but missed a lot of time with an injury, and he just returned. He was a guy I thought maybe they'd try to sneak on IR and redshirt him, but now he's back, and I guess you could still come up with a phantom injury, but it's risky.
Yeah, well, it's tough once he gets healthy and he's practicing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you stash him, I mean, you can't do that these days. You really have to document that he's hurt. And if you can't, you could get fined or lose a draft pick even. So teams teams generally don't do that. It doesn't have to be a really serious injury. So maybe he can.
That's the thing. He just has to be hurt.
Yeah, it just has to be hurt.
I remember the Josh Sweat rookie year. He was on the roster. They're like, he's not going to play this year. He got an ankle injury. Like, all right, shut him down.
Yeah. Yeah. And then week 2, you're like, Josh, how's your ankle? He's like, my ankle? Like, yeah. What? Oh yeah. But yeah, Stevens, and I think a lot of it comes down to, that Sam linebacker and, how that's going to play out. I just, who are they going to keep out of that group? And, is Kerrigan a guy that can play that? I don't know. They got to keep somebody to do it, because it's obviously a big part of what Jonathan Gannon likes to do.
Yeah. And it's like, are you going to keep, say, Patrick Johnson or Gerard Avery on the roster over a guy like Sean Bradley just because you want that position on your team? I don't know the answer to that. On merit, you shouldn't, but if Gannon thinks that it's better off having someone to play that role, then maybe you will. That's one of the biggest mysteries to me, is they start the roster cut down.
Yeah. So they cut a couple guys today or yesterday.
Sunday, Jamon Osborne and Lavert Hill.
Lavert Hill, cornerback. Osborne, receiver. The oldest receiver on the roster. Osborne at 27.
Is that right?
Yeah. So the receiving corps got younger.
They have 3 more cuts to make. By the time you hear this, they might have already made them, because I don't know if they're going to bring guys to North Jersey who they're going to cut tomorrow.
You wouldn't think. What do you like? Get on New Jersey Transit back to Philly? I mean, what do you send a guy back in a van? I mean,
give him bus fare and wish him the best.
Man, I'm trying to.
I do like, by the way, I don't think we ever talked about this, but Nick Sirianni, he was asked, and he said he does meet with every player they cut, which isn't always the case.
Right.
The head coach of a team doesn't always meet with every player. So that's a nice touch. And I think, based on what we know about him, if you're going to say connecting is one of your core values, then you can't just kick a guy out and not say goodbye to him.
Yeah. And I mean, the odds are, 6 to 8 of these guys, maybe, 10, they're going to be back. I mean, a bunch of them back on the practice squad. Mm-hmm. A bunch will be back on the roster eventually. So it really makes sense. Like, if I get cut from a team and the coach doesn't say anything to me, and then maybe in October, 2 teams want to sign me, and I feel like the coach, didn't treat me fairly, I'm going to go sign with the other team. So it just makes good sense to keep those relationships. And I mean, you think about how many guys on this team got cut once and came back and had success. I mean, Alex Singleton, Greg Ward, bought Boston Scott. I mean, all these guys got cut. Nate Gary. Um, but I mean, there's a lot of guys on this team have gotten released at some point and come back and, been functional players. So it makes sense. And I like the fact that he does that.
Yeah, I do too. We have to mention carefully that the quarterback in Indianapolis practicing on Monday doesn't necessarily mean he's going to play week 1, but it looks like things are trending that way, which we have to keep an eye on it. That's the nature of that trade, is that it matters how much he plays in Indy for the Eagles draft pick. A reminder of that, he has to either play 75% of the Colts snaps or he has to play 70% and they get to the playoffs. So that storyline isn't going away. That's good news for the Eagles that he's back on the practice field.
Yeah, it's huge, because even if he's not ready for the opener, odds are week 2, week 3, and he really just needs to. He probably needs to play 13 games to, to something. I mean, you never know. They could start taking them out when they're up big or down big, but I don't know how that works. But yeah, definitely good news.
I'm picturing, week 18, Chris Ballard's calling down the Frank Reich like, get him out.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff has happened with incentives.
He's at 74%.
74 point, and like, how do you round up? Like 74 point, 4, like 0.5? Does that round up 70?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll have
74.47. Does that round up to 75 and round up?
I'm going to find that out. That's my new mission.
Okay. Yeah, you work on it. I've been wondering about that. That's been keeping me up nights.
I bet it has. Yeah, so that's not going away. We'll see what happens there. Anything else you got?
No, looking forward to the next couple of days. They're going to be probably 2 of the hottest days we've had at practice.
Oh, yeah? I haven't even looked at the weather yet. Is that going to be
that
hot?
Low 90s. So they'll be, not bad, but it should be good work, and looking forward to getting up there. And
I've never been to a joint practice at another place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I missed the ones in New England that year. I wasn't back yet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it'll certainly be interesting. I'm not sure what to expect.
It's fun for me. Like, I get so into my routine at the NovaCare complex. I'm very precise about
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah. So I'm a little nervous about, what's it going to be like up there, but I'll figure it out.
Can I just tell people about your routine a little bit? Like, so, Dave has to get down there to start taking attendance, every player that comes out on the field, see who's missing. And, practice starts at 10, but players start wandering out at what, like 9:35.
Yeah. Some guys go to the jugs machine. Nate Herbig just goes out and sits on the field for some reason.
Yeah, he does. So, Dave will be like, I'm going down to the field. I'll be like, wait up. I'll be ready in like 20 seconds. No, he's on this schedule. Like, he can't wait. like, cause no, that'll mess up your entire day. I'm like, I just have to find my pen. Like, no,
you don't even know the whole thing. Like, on my notepad, I write down the previous day's injury report by number and separated by how much they did the previous day. So I can not just cross them off on the roster, but also cross them off on there. And having press conferences before practice has ruined my life.
Yeah. We talked to the offense, whether, Gannon's after practice, but Sirianni and Shane Steichen, when we talked to them, are before practice. So we'll be interviewing them. We're in this tent on the side of the field, off the field. And we're all like looking at Shane or looking at Nick, and Dave's like look, turned around so we can write down, like, Ross Piersbacher just showed up. And, so it's definitely interesting, but it's good work. It's good stuff.
Fun. All right. We good?
So we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys soon, and we'll keep you posted on. I guess our next pod will be after joint practices, and
we'll go through what we saw in those 2 days. Unless something crazy happens, then maybe we'll have to scrounge around and do another one. But we're planning on Wednesday after the 2 joint practices. So if you enjoy the pod, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You just don't like me saying this.
We've never done a podcast in New Jersey, have we? Well, I guess after maybe a Giants game.
I mean, I've done most of them in New Jersey.
That's true. The last year and a half. But I mean, as far as like actual,
we've done them at MetLife, I think.
Yeah, Giants game, a couple Giants games. All right.
If you enjoyed the Eagle Eye podcast, rate and subscribe and leave a comment. YouTube
How many
listeners,
different
please.
states have we done podcasts in? All right, just forget it. I'll figure it out.
YouTube do the stuff too. All right, for Reuben, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you soon.